The 1800s were a century of incredible change. The world shifted from horse-drawn carriages to railroads, from handwritten letters to instant telegraphs, and from handmade goods to mass production. Many of the inventions from that century didn't just shape their own era, they still shape our lives today. From the bicycle you ride for fun to the light bulb over your head, let's look at 20 inventions from the 19th century that we still rely on every single day. 1. The battery, 1800. The 19th century began with a literal spark, Alessandro Volta's invention of the electric battery in 1800. Known as the voltaic pile, it was the first device that could provide a steady, reliable source of electricity. Before this, electricity could only be generated in short bursts, making it nearly impossible to use for practical applications. Today, Volta's creation has evolved into the batteries that power everything from flashlights to smartphones, electric cars, and even medical devices. Without the first battery, our portable world would not exist. 2. The stethoscope, 1816. In 1816, French physician René Laennec invented the stethoscope because he was uncomfortable placing his ear directly on women's chests to listen to their hearts. His wooden tube evolved into the familiar instrument every doctor carries today. The stethoscope revolutionized medicine, giving doctors a way to listen inside the body without surgery. 2 centuries later, despite all of our medical technology, doctors still rely on stethoscopes to diagnose patients quickly and effectively. 3. The bicycle, 1817–1860s. The very first form of the bicycle, called the draisine or hobby horse, was invented in 1817 by Baron Carl von Drais. Riders propelled themselves forward by pushing their feet against the ground. By the 1860s, pedals were added, creating the velocipede, and the bicycle craze took off. Today, bicycles are not only a beloved pastime but also an essential mode of transportation worldwide. The basic design hasn't changed: 2 wheels, a frame, and human power. 4. The typewriter, 1829. In 1829, William Austin Burt patented what he called a typographer, the first recognizable typewriter. Later refinements in the 1860s and 1870s made it practical for offices. This invention changed the way we communicate, making written text faster, more uniform, and easier to produce in bulk. Even though computers have replaced typewriters, the QWERTY keyboard layout created in the 19th century is still used on nearly every computer, tablet, and phone. 5. Photography, 1826. The first permanent photograph was taken in 1826 by Joseph Nicephore Niepce using a camera obscura and a pewter plate coated in bitumen. Exposure times were extremely long, hours instead of seconds. But this invention changed the way humans captured memory. By the 1840s, portrait photography was replacing expensive painted portraits. Today, billions of photos are taken every day with smartphones, but the magic of freezing a moment in time began in the 1800s. 6. The sewing machine, 1830. French tailor Barthélemy Thimonier created the first practical sewing machine in 1830. At first, tailors feared it would steal their jobs, and mobs even destroyed Thimonier's workshop. But the invention couldn't be stopped. It transformed clothing production, making garments faster and cheaper to produce. Today, sewing machines are still in every factory producing clothing and textiles, and many homes still keep one for repairs and crafts. 7. The revolver, 1836. Samuel Colt patented the first practical revolver in 1836, a firearm that could fire multiple rounds without reloading after each shot. It changed warfare, policing, and even everyday self-defense. The revolver became a symbol of the American West. While modern firearms have advanced, the revolver is still widely produced and used today, proving the durability of Colt's 19th century design. 8. The telegraph, 1837. In 1837, Samuel Morse developed the telegraph and Morse code, a system that allowed information to travel across continents in minutes instead of weeks. This invention shrank the world, making rapid communication possible for the first time in history. While we no longer send telegrams, the telegraph was the direct ancestor of the telephone, the internet, and instant messaging. Every time you text, you're using the legacy of Morse's invention. 9. The wrench, 1835 to 1842. In the 1830s and 1840s, inventors in both England and America created adjustable wrenches. The tool was simple but revolutionary. One device could grip and turn nuts and bolts of different sizes. Mechanics, plumbers, and builders still rely on this same design today. It's a perfect example of a 19th century invention that hasn't needed much improvement. 10. The fax machine, 1843. It may surprise you, but the fax machine was invented in 1843 by Scottish inventor Alexander Bain. He created a device that could scan images and transmit them over telegraph lines. While it took more than a century for faxing to become common in offices, the principle was born in the 19th century. Today, even though email dominates, fax machines still exist in legal and medical fields, proof of an invention that refuses to die. 11. The elevator safety brake, 1852. Elevators had existed before, but they were too dangerous for everyday use. That changed in 1852, when Elisha Otis demonstrated his safety brake, which prevented an elevator from falling if the hoisting rope snapped. His invention made skyscrapers possible, reshaping modern cities. Without the elevator safety brake, urban architecture as we know it would not exist. Step into any elevator today, and you're standing in Otis's legacy. 12. Anesthesia, 1846. Before anesthesia, surgery was brutal, often performed while patients were awake and restrained. In 1846, dentist William Morton publicly demonstrated the use of ether as anesthesia, forever transforming medicine. Suddenly, complex surgeries became possible, and suffering was drastically reduced. Modern anesthetics are more advanced, but the principle hasn't changed. Every time you go under for surgery, you're benefiting from a 19th century breakthrough. 13. The sewing needle with eye, 1849. In 1849, Walter Hunt patented a safety pin and refined sewing tools. While sewing needles had existed for millennia, the 19th century gave us mass-produced, steel-eyed needles that were cheap, durable, and widely available. These made home sewing and repairs accessible to nearly everyone. Even in the age of fast fashion, a humble needle and thread remain household essentials. 14. The safety pin, 1849. Walter Hunt also invented the safety pin in 1849 to pay off a $15 debt. His design is nearly identical to the ones we use today, a coiled pin with a clasp for safety. It became essential for fastening clothing and diapers, and people still use safety pins daily in sewing kits, fashion fixes, and crafts. Sometimes the simplest ideas are the most lasting. 15. The Bessemer process, 1856. Henry Bessemer's process for mass-producing steel in 1856 changed the world. For the first time, steel could be made quickly and cheaply, fueling railroads, bridges, and skyscrapers. Steel remains the backbone of modern construction, and while production has advanced, the foundation laid by Bessemer still supports our infrastructure today. 16. The pasteurization process, 1864. French scientist Louis Pasteur discovered in 1864 that heating liquids like milk and wine could kill harmful microbes, preventing spoilage and disease. Pasteurization became a cornerstone of food safety. Today, nearly all dairy products and many beverages go through pasteurization, directly connecting our modern kitchens to a 19th century lab. 17. The dynamite, 1867. Invented by Alfred Nobel in 1867, dynamite made construction and mining far more efficient. While explosives had existed for centuries, Nobel's controlled, stable invention allowed tunnels, railroads, and canals to be built at an unprecedented pace. Dynamite is still used in controlled demolitions and mining today. Ironically, Nobel's invention, though destructive, also paved the way for his peace-promoting Nobel Prizes. 18. The telephone, 1876. Alexander Graham Bell's telephone in 1876 was a game-changer. For the first time, people could hear each other's voices across miles of distance. The telephone network quickly spread worldwide, shrinking distances even further than the telegraph had. While smartphones are far more advanced, every phone call traces back to Bell's 19th century invention. 19. The light bulb, 1879. Thomas Edison didn't invent the first light bulb, but in 1879 he created the first practical, long-lasting incandescent lamp. Electric light changed human life, extending productive hours and transforming cities with glowing streets. While we now use LEDs and other technologies, the basic idea of safe, artificial light is Edison's enduring gift. 20. The automobile, 1886. In 1886, Carl Benz built the Benz patent motorwagen, considered the first modern automobile. Unlike earlier steam-powered vehicles, Benz's car used a gasoline-powered internal combustion engine. His wife, Bertha Benz, famously drove it long distance to prove its practicality. Today's cars are more advanced, but the DNA of Benz's invention still runs through every vehicle on the road. The 1800s were a century of change, invention, and progress. From the telephone to the light bulb, from the sewing machine to the automobile, these creations didn't just transform their own time, they continue to shape ours. The next time you turn on a light, hop on a bike, or pick up your phone, remember, you're using a piece of history that began over 150 years ago.